And to add to that organizationally, I think if you break organizations down into purpose, place, and practice, I think in a lot of cases, AI can really focus on refining the practice and replacing some skills. It can't solve for purpose and for an individual's role in the organization. When you talk about why individuals leave companies, in most cases, it's not because of the skills gap. It's because of their role and their ability to understand the broader mission and their sense within it. And I think ultimately what AI can do is help make more organizations aware of the gaps on the first two to then improve the latter.
Well, that's all great sharings. Good to know what has holding us back and moving forward. Also, education has already been there years and age, like centuries, to help us to fully realize our potential. So nowadays, you guys just mentioned education will be changed by artificial intelligence. So some of you highlight a little bit. Would like to give you another chance to elaborate a little bit more. How do you think education will be empowered by artificial intelligence to fully help us to unleash our human potential?
I think we are in the beginning of a new world. Definitely education is a very, very traditional and with a long history. So I don't think, I don't want to give more comments about the past, but now with AI, we have a lot of opportunity to change education a lot. So this is what we are doing in Oriental right now. For example, just to give some examples, we could not in the past we could not give treat each student. We could not give take care of them with personalized stuff or courses. But with AI, we can do this very efficiently. So we can unleash the constraints, a lot of constraints, due to the traditional limitations of resources, limitations of teachers. So for example, we are doing AI synthetic teacher. So an AI teacher will not tired. I mean, it can work anytime for students. If a student has questions, it can give you very good answers. And also we can train all these data always. So a lot of opportunities, I think. Thank you.
The example that comes to mind is actually from Accenture, where they have in the past year invested over $1 billion in retraining 300,000 workers. Part of the challenge was in identifying the workers whose jobs were most likely to be impacted or disrupted by automation. And they actually developed technology that drew in their L&D data and their performance data, and then were able to show the gaps in employees' performance as well as adjacent areas of opportunity where employees can continually upskill and make quicker leaps over. And so I think from a employment and organizational perspective, more targeted development focused on business outcomes, not just individual outcomes, will help companies continue to deal with the amount and the variety of change that's forthcoming.
Yeah, AI has a chance to really deepen personalization and tailor education at 3 levels that haven't been possible before. So the first is right at the individual student. In the same way that self-driving cars kind of learn to adapt to the road conditions and make the incredibly nuanced adjustments that's required to drive safely, AI has the potential to adjust to the incredible nuances of each student's learning style and produce a learning experience that's optimally tailored to that individual. The second place where AI can learn what's really hard for people to learn is kind of at that mid-level. As we think about a competency-based approach, how can we learn really what is a threshold of competence? John Katzman talked about this for that particular skill or skill set, and how do we think about building that skill set in the most efficient way using the appropriate materials? that's also susceptible to machine learning and data. And then at the highest level, AI can really impact how we think about curriculum and just the overall process of education and what, in fact, produces the outcomes that we're looking at. So at a macro level, a mid-level, and a micro level, if we collect the right data, these algorithms can do incredibly powerful things to help us optimize the learning process.
Yeah, like actually, it's a fantastic answer. And just to build on that, whenever I think of AI, I think or machine learning, I think of like either you have dumb algorithms to start and you get a lot of data, which I think is a really important approach, right? And that's how you get to real personalized kind of insights. Or you take the shortcut where you've built a bunch of assumptions into the algorithms, and it's not really AI, it's just statistics, right? And what I'm interested in is I feel like we have to go the other way, where we have to have real data about real people behaving in the system to be able to get true personalization. My worry is that if I'm starting a company and I want to say, look, I can do this, I'll just go ahead and put, personality types or whatever I want in and call it this. But we've known in psychology for a long time, things that work at the aggregate level that are perfect predictors there are really poor predictors at the individual level. So personality types, Big Five is guaranteed the best factor structure you'll get in aggregate data. We've known it predicts actual human behavior, it only predicts 9% of the variance of behavior. That's a terrible percentage to build something on. So as long as we do this right, I think everything that's been said, our ability to truly be able to start personalizing is there. And I'll just add one piece of that. In addition to the individual, I think it has a chance to enhance the relationship aspect of learning, right? Which is fundamentally based on an accurate understanding of the child, and so I think it's enormous potential if we do it right.
Well, this is great. Being an educator, I've heard you guys talking about personalized learning, individualized learning. I think I'm a big advocate, and also I appreciate individuality a lot as well. I do believe human beings' collective potential lies in nurturing individuality. And I think with AI, with technology evolves in the hopefully not so far away, but in the near future, we'll be able to help the students put together their individualized learning plan, help them to prioritize their learning objectives, and also putting together more relevant learning materials for them so that they will have a better learning experience at school. And also, I think to realize human potential should also go beyond the school. I think it should be lifelong. It should be always in our lifelong journey. So after school, they go to work, and in companies, in corporates, we do hope our employees will get more chances to realize their full potential. So we have leaders here on stage and also people working from workforce side. Have you guys seen companies have done great things to fully realize their employees' potential recently?
First, okay. I think all the companies, they are trying to do something by using AI to increase the efficiency, work efficiency. In Oriental, we are trying to do something for education right now. We are trying to build up, for example, we are trying to build up a new system. We call it AI classroom. Basically, we try to use AI algorithm to help teachers to improve their teaching quality and performance. So with an AI network to connect all the classrooms, we can do such kind of a comparison between teachers. And this is kind of new to Oriental. Definitely, by doing this, we can give all the teachers new power to achieve better education for students. Yeah.
Sure. So I can share a couple examples that I've seen, but from our perspective, I think the big shift organizationally is moving away from workforce planning to moving to work planning. So thinking about the objectives that our business needs to accomplish broadly and thinking less in terms of the people that it would take, but what would it take to use people and technology in thoughtful ways that maximizes the return for the business, but optimizes the engagement of the individual employees. I think in a lot of cases, there's a broad moral principle to not create shitty jobs. And I think the answer to a lot of the larger problems that we've had has been let's throw more bodies at the problem, agnostic of the day-to-day work that creates. You've seen that with the rise of outsourcing. You've seen that with mechanical turking. And for us, some of the challenges that we're facing as a business, such as creating our catalog in 3D. We have 10 million SKUs on our website. For us to accomplish that, it would be unsustainable using a human workforce entirely. What we've started to do is leverage our design team's models and use machine learning to scale those models across different items, whether they're table lamps or couches. And then the designers are adding the touches that are actually making those human and delighting the customers at the end of that experience. And for the designers, the feedback and the desire is that their work is being seen as broadly as possible and is effectively maximizing their output while letting them do more interesting work rather than rendering the same lamp or the same couch time and time again. And so in a tactical example, I think engagement comes from designing the work system, but also creating that with the lens of the individual employee's efforts in mind.
Yeah, so two I'd mention. One is Intuit. At any given time, they have something on the order of 6,000 job openings, and they've been able to create a kind of AI-driven marketplace where they can couple the ability of people within the company to find the right new situation with their external recruiting flow so that they have a very efficient and data-driven way to match the right person and their career aspirations to this massive opportunity within the company. The other is L'Oreal. They have a built-in kind of ecosystem around cosmetics and beauty and so on, and they've been able to really use AI as a way to span the gap between net promoters and thinking about marketing and then thinking about their employees who really are employees at L'Oreal because they have the same inclinations and interests as their customers. So they use an AI-driven platform to kind of blend interests and collaboration between their employee group and their external customers.
It's so funny because most of the time the examples I can pick are almost always these big tech companies that have access to massive amounts of data, right? Like, so Google, I think, does some very interesting things, challenging bias and the ways you think who makes a good hire. But I think that almost across the board, what we see is folks that are using AI this way end up always starting. It's not about the AI. It's about there's a set of values and an approach. You know, they're far more people-centric. They don't want to create shitty jobs. And then, you know, this allows you to do that better. But I always think there's that core belief that you start with that makes it work.
Yeah, actually, I was reading a report from World Economic Forum a couple of weeks ago. It is saying by year 2022, a lot of activities happening in workplace will be taken away by machines. The number is actually, they gave like 42%, which is a jump from nowadays about like 29%. And also we know there are around like 3.2 billion manual laborers. Those are the people relying on their eyes and the hands to perform their jobs, like truck drivers and cleaners, janitors. And not only them, but also like accountants, lawyers, and content writers. Their job will be influenced by machine and probably later artificial intelligence a lot. So for those type of people, their job will be transformed by technology. How do you think we can be helpful to realize and amplify their potential so that they won't be worried about their job security?
In my opinion, I don't think we have to worry too much about this because the technology is always changing. But meanwhile, human being is evolving too. So my opinion is that we always see people, especially teachers, won't worry about to lose their jobs. But people, I mean teachers who do not know any AI will lose for sure. So that's my answer.
Sure. So I think I share some of the skepticism. I think one of the few jobs that has been materially displaced by automation is elevator operators. I think they might still have a union, but I think fundamentally, at a day-to-day level, the thing that humans are good at is switching contexts and switching domains, and the power skills or the soft skills, as others have alluded to. There's a unique opportunity to build organizations that key into that more. The example that always comes to mind here in Boston, and referencing MIT, is Spice. For those that aren't familiar, they use robot automation to prepare quick service restaurant meals, and the experience there is fundamentally one that is very human. More of the folks that are working there are spending time interacting with the customers, explaining the technology, empathizing and delighting. And I think that if you compare that to what's going on at a Chipotle, where they're using video technology to make sure the right amount of guac is being spooned onto your burrito, I think fundamentally that type of work becomes less human. And so there's an interesting opportunity to make the type of jobs, whether it's a driver or operator or warehouse worker, more human.
Yeah, I sort of take a middle view on this. We're not going to run out of jobs, and we're not going to run out of useful ways that people can outperform machines. But I do think we're at a tipping point where new kinds of people are going to be confronting a world where they have to work differently in a pretty profound way. You go to a manufacturing floor today, people in the industrial world have come to grips with the idea that it is a cobot world, right? They have to work hand in glove with the machines to be efficient. I think we're now at that place where white-collar workers, knowledge workers are going to go through a similar evolution. I don't think it's going to be that easy. I think that it's going to take a lot of effort, both from the point of view of the educational system and from the point of view of people who are building AI software, to make that collaboration really work right.
Yeah, and just to build on that, I do think it still ends up meaning any kind of displacement opens up a conversation about safety nets and things like universal basic income and other kinds of stuff that no matter what sector you're in, this might be a broader question that we have to think about.
Good. So through education, training, and also mentally get propelled, so we will have our people get ready for the future. And I also recently heard, not recently, actually starting from a couple of years ago, I've heard there is another magic way to enhance human potential. Probably you've also heard about that, which is brain or body implants. So here leads to my question. So actually the thing is, this is not something I'm talking about in the science fiction. This is quickly entering the realm of science. And I heard the Defense of Research Agency here in the United States is trying to implant some of the AI-powered chips to their soldiers, try to monitor and regulate the soldiers' mood. And also from the private side, we have Elon Musk having his company called Neuralink, which is not only actually, at the beginning I was thinking this is trying to fight against the diseases. Actually, it is also trying to figure out a way to augment human power to compete with computers, with machines. So my question is, do you think the world is ready for that type of human enhancement? And do you think is this something worthy to pursue in the first place? You can start, yeah.
So having done neuroscience research in my previous life, I think what you'll see is really rapid wins in the space of low-level perceptual and motor areas, so neuroprosthetics and stuff like that, very simple signal. I mean, not simple, simple-ish signal from the brain. But when you start getting dissociation of the brain, the things we really are thinking about, we barely understand it. I think I'm not as, I'm bearish in terms of when we're going to get something that's truly augmenting cognitive and affective capabilities, but that doesn't mean you can't. You can get a long way with perceptual enhancements and motoric enhancements.
Yeah, if you want to see a demo that'll just blow your mind, go out and look for the videos for a company called Control Labs, CTRL, and they built a pretty working example of what Todd was talking about. Basically, one of the demos, they use a wristband. It's not something that's implanted in the brain, it's low impact. And the wristband basically interprets through machine learning the electronic signals coming from the brain. But basically, one of the demos is a person typing without moving their fingers. So they just sort of think the band does it, and the words appear on the screen. And another, maybe even more interesting demo, it gets at the prosthetics kind of use case, is of a machine operator manipulating an octopus-like set of devices, sort of being able to work 8 arms at once. And it's a great example of the brain adapting to something that is actually sort of a super example of the body. So I think BMI, that's the acronym, brain-machine interface. BMI is going to be here probably faster than we think, but it'll be like most technologies, a lot slower to get to the sci-fi level kind of impact of everybody walking around with a chip in their head.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think I have all that much to add there, other than I think we are already feeling the effects of, and it's not quite AI, but technological augmentation, whether it's GPS, whether it's being able to discover new restaurants, whether it's being able to receive reminders to straighten your posture from a biomedical device on your back. I think it'll be a more gradual shift, particularly in the workforce. I think one of the things that is all too abundant is that even if you have that silver bullet technology, adoption and customer success and changing workflows and patterns is not an easy problem to solve. And so I think it'll be a gradual shift rather than something that all of a sudden you wake up and you're not you anymore in that way.
Okay, personally, I don't like the word implanting because it sounds very scary.
It is.
Yeah, but definitely similar devices will be available for sure in the near future. But in my opinion, I think why don't we put it as a wearable product? Because it's just a different design for products, and we can achieve the same result. We can apply a similar AI algorithm, not just on chips, not into a human being's brain or body.
Yeah, and also no matter it is going to be implanted in our body or brain, or it's kind of extended kind of devices. My next question related to that is by depending on those type of devices, I understand it will give us kind of superpower or more capabilities, realize our more potential. But do you guys think, although we are trying to upgrading ourselves by using those kind of technologies, but will it end up downgrading us? Which means, do you think it will lead us to become less critical thinker, or do you think it will lead us to a total dependency because machine will help us to do better decision, do things better, and until the end, do you think there will be a scary kind of ending, which we become slavery to our invention? So it's kind of like heaven or hell kind of debating going on nowadays outside. I would like to hear what your guys' thoughts and feedbacks on those.
Yeah, I mean, look, I feel like every time there's a new technology, I mean, this is throughout all of history, people are like, the sky is falling, it's going to be awful, and there are some problems with every single piece, right? You got to remember, Socrates actually was against the written word. He said it would make us dumb. It would make our memories worse. And if by dumb you mean we can't recite a play verbatim, then yeah, that was a loss, right? But I mean, and you can see as the oral tradition, he's probably thinking this is the most important thing, right? But the ability to get that knowledge into written form not only allows for the proliferation of knowledge and other things, that the trade-off could be worth it. What I think is, look, so we're using AI, we're using computer. I mean, you notice that actually even using Google, we know actually affects how your brain stores memories. Like you're not remembering the fact, but actually how to get the fact, right? And so it's going to have some effect. But like to me, it's the question is, what's the skill that you're going to have to make this trade-off worth it, right? So in the case of like written word, literacy, right? And the people that figured that out fast, the rich and the clergy hoarded that skill for a long, long time, right? Like, so if we can think about like, this is coming, what is the skill that people need to have to make this trade-off worth it and make sure we all get it rather than a privileged few?
Beautiful, yeah.
We can't really believe an invention is big without simultaneously believing it's going to be really bad. We've never made an advance without taking a pretty severe consequence, whether it's automobiles with 1 million deaths and global warming, or television with obesity and brain deadness. But it is probably important to say that for most of us, we've already crossed that threshold of dependence. I live up in Napa, and when we had the fire a year ago and we lost electricity and internet, boy, you realized right away how absolutely and utterly dependent you are on technology for every last thing that you do every day. So I don't think AI represents a tipping point in that context. I think AI does, though, force us to think about how we can move up the Maslow hierarchy in a world where the technology can increasingly handle some of those lower level things that we've spent a lot of energy on up till now.
Yeah, I think a lot of AI will accelerate knowledge production, whether it's the same way as the written word or MOOCs or collaborative learning. I think fundamentally wisdom is the synthesis of knowledge and values. And so in the cases where AI is thoughtfully applied, like a cell phone or like any other technology, there needs to be intentionality and human judgment applied to the discretion of that technology. And I think so it forces less of a regulatory structure, but it forces the individual to be much more conscious of their own role and dependency therein.
I think we can easily find the answer from the history. Just to think about how a smartphone or internet have done to human society. AI is a new technology, but actually it has very, very, very long, more than 20 years history. It's now new. But with the rapid growth, I think indeed the singularity is coming. It gives us a superpower to change a lot of industries, including education, but it won't terminate the world. So that's my opinion.
Cool. I think, all we have to do is like working together, keep taking the full advantage of this new technology, artificial intelligence, and at the same time, be cautious a little bit so we can harness the convergent technology and to help us to create an inclusive and human-centric kind of future for all of us. So we are almost running out of time, but I would like to give the audience some opportunities to ask some questions. Go ahead, sir.
Operators are actually still in construction. There could be quite a bit of money on that. But I had a question for Mark. You mentioned AI can help out with curriculum development, and I just wanted to hear a little bit more about that.
Sure. What AI is really good at is taking massive amounts of data and discerning and learning the patterns that drive to an outcome. And when we think about how kids learn, we do not have today the accumulation of data that we have around how we build up and move through a shopping cart system or how we consume online ads. So the opportunity is for us to really watch in new digital ways how kids are learning as the textbooks and things increasingly move online, and then to turn that data over to the right kinds of algorithms where we can build better scope and sequence. We can think about these issues of time on task from a more data-driven point of view. We can think about the right kind of mix of blended practice versus instruction. We can look at the nature of the resources that we're bringing to bear, and we can start to make decisions in the incredibly efficient way that we are now exposed to online ads, right? We can essentially allow the content to unfold against a scope and sequence in a way that we know the data dictates will work.
So I got the mic over here. So that's a great segue into the question I had, because it's my biggest concern when it comes to AI, is that for AI to work, you need large sets of data. And in education, it's all what I would consider past data. And so are we taking AI and making the current education model faster and more efficient, which isn't what we're gonna need for the future? And how do we take AI so that we can take the best ideas in education so that we can bring education to the next level?
I mean, the deployment of these things, like, it largely depends on the goals of the system that you're introducing it to, right? So I agree with you. Like, my personal opinion is I'm not interested at all in making the existing crummy system we have with narrow outcomes and terrible views of kids and potential slightly more efficient, right? But if the play is, how do I put this into that existing system and how do I get adoption, you have no choice but to drive towards those outcomes that are valued. So I see a lot of the interesting things largely in the stuff at the periphery of the system, where there's less sort of regulation, or that's probably not the right word, less sort of really serious restrictions on this, where you have the ability to drive toward broader outcomes. That's my hope. I'm terrified about it being used just to double down on this standardized system we have.
Yeah, I can add more. I think we are still in the beginning of this new era. For your question, specifically for education, we call it generic AI, could not be suitable for education industry yet. That's why that's what we found. For example, when you want to do voice recognition, for example, in this room, just by using a surveillance camera to record our discussion, you cannot achieve 100% or more than 90% accuracy. Usually, it maybe just use Google. I mean, by our experience, you can only achieve at most 80% accuracy. That's not acceptable right now. But usually, when you use a very low-cost cameras, surveillance cameras to record a classroom, usually we can only achieve like at most 60% by use the state-of-art ASR, I mean voice recognition engine. So we still need to do a lot of effort for scenario AI, meaning specifically design voice recognition or other engines for education purpose. So after that, I think we can see a lot of improvements or achievements later on. So this is something we are trying to do.
So I think this is such an interesting topic. It can go on and on and on, but we are running out of time already. So hopefully we'll take off this topic and have more discussions in the near future. Okay, thank you.